Welcome, adventurers. Today on Rebel Then King, I am going to close out my class coverage of Player Core 2. Seems like a fitting day considering that this arrived today. Look at that, all shiny and new. Love it. And I am going to go over the biggest, the best, and yes, some of the worst changes to the classes as part of this rulebook. They are in no particular order, so let's get started with the Alchemist's inventory. What a huge change this is. The old system involved something called infused reagents, which you could use either in the morning as part of advanced alchemy or use later in the day as part of quick alchemy, and there were trade-offs to both. But now that is gone. Advanced alchemy and quick alchemy are totally separated. Advanced alchemy, you get to simply make up to 4 plus your intelligence modifier of alchemical items in the morning that last for a day, part of your daily preparations. And then for quick alchemy, you actually have something called versatile vials, and you have up to 2 plus your intelligence modifier of those. And those do replenish during downtime. During 10 minutes of downtime, you will regain 2 versatile vials. These can be used in the new quick alchemy system. So you can make an item that is short-lived with one of those versatile vials, and if you run out of versatile vials, you can even make a new super rare temporary one that has even more limited use using another action as part of quick alchemy. This is an enormous change. I mean, we completely did away with the old wording, the old sort of paired organization. It's split up now. And most importantly, this addresses the huge issue that the alchemist had of simply running out of things that they could do as an alchemist. Sure, you could always help someone else out or just use a dagger or a sling or something, but you could literally run out of alchemical items as an alchemist, and that is no longer the case. But that does lead me to one of the worst, which is the organization of the new alchemist mechanics. The mechanics themselves work fantastically. There are even more mechanical advantages that the new alchemist has over the old that I didn't even talk about. But it takes a while to get there in the text, and I think it is kind of confusingly worded in the way that I almost feel like Paizo felt like they had to keep quick alchemy as a word and advanced alchemy as a word, when in reality they could have split things apart a bit more. In fact, in my initial analysis video for the new Alchemist, I I just eliminated some wording and reorganized the wording in a suggestion that, to me, is a lot easier to understand and actually has the exact same mechanics, but about half the text. There were lots of other videos, lots of other discussions about this. Some people saying, it doesn't seem that bad, but a fair amount saying, yeah, I was confused, or I thought I got it, but then I saw someone else's video or read another comment and I realized I actually missed something. So the organization leaves a little to be desired. I think it is best summed up by a comment I read on Reddit from the user Midcore. How many tries has Paizo had at making Alchemist both useful and intelligible now? How many more do they need? Because, yeah, we have a very, very useful Alchemist now. Intelligible, that's kind of debatable. On to another biggest. This is the new complete class organization of the champion class, now with anathemas, sanctification, and reorganized causes. Now, this is because we are doing away with alignment in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. There is no longer chaotic evil or, lawful good and things like that, which is what was used to organize the old champion class because they are champions of those causes. Now, all of that is replaced with an entire section on anathemas and another section on sanctification. So there are no longer any good or evil champions, but there are holy and unholy. And this does affect which cause, devotion spell, and feats you can pick up as you are building out your champion character. Literally every cause was renamed, Desecrator to Desecration, for example. Anti-Paladin is now Inquity, Liberator to Liberation, that kind of stuff. And there was one new subclass introduced, the Grandeur, which has a cool debuff option using Revealing Light. There are even more champion changes to talk about later, but more on that later. And now onto a best change for the Elemental Sorcerer and the new organization and usage of their elements. First of all, there are now 6 elements, which matches the 6 that the kineticist uses, so that's good consistency. And now their elemental toss focus spell no longer just does fire and bludgeoning for everyone else. It's actually fire if you are a fire elemental sorcerer. And then the other elements, yes, some do use bludgeoning, but you can also have either slashing or piercing. So hooray, something else going on there. Additionally, you're granted cantrip and you're granted spells now change for each of the elemental selections. So now all of your spells and your damage type actually tie into the element that you choose, and it is not just fire and everything else. And another biggest, though also probably a best change, goes to the Draconic bloodline of the sorcerer. First of all, the dragons have already been reorganized. They are no longer metal and color-based, but they just have awesome names like Adamantine and Conspirator and Omen. And now, depending on which dragon, which Draconic exemplar you pick, you will change your spellcasting tradition, your skills, and your granted spells. The focus spell is the same for each of the options, but overall, there is now huge variety within this subclass alone, making it an even more fun, flavorful, and versatile option. Another biggest change goes to the Oracle and their new curse system. This is a huge change compared to what it used to be. You used to cast your focus spells in order to advance your curse, and the curse had named stages, minor, moderate, and major, if I'm remembering correctly. And now, well, first of all, you do not advance your curse by casting focus spells, but instead by using curse-bound abilities. And now your stages of your curse don't have names. It is simply like a lot of other conditions in this system where it is curse-bound 1, curse-bound 2, up to curse-bound 4. So very, very big differences, very much of a one-to-one relationship and a little bit easier to track. I would say a lot of it easier to track than it used to be. Big changes here. Now onto one of the best changes with the Champion's focus spells. First of all, there is a new one, and it is awesome. Shields of the Spirit. You raise your shield and cast the spell kind of combined as one action. It is a focus spell, so it costs a focus point. And while one of your allies is in your champion's aura during that time while you have it raised, the shield grants them a +1 bonus to their AC. That's already cool. I already like protecting multiple people in an area around you through this Gish ability. Great start. But additionally, each time an enemy makes an attack against the ally, the enemy takes 1d4 spirit damage, even if it misses, and that is each time. So I love this spell. This is so cool. And then another cool thing about the focus spells is you can choose this, but you don't have to. You actually can choose your focus spell. You can choose Shields of the Spirit, Lay on Hands, or Touch of Void, which is the renamed Touch of Corruption, based on your deity's divine font. So you can actually now play as the Obedience Champion, which is the renamed Tyrant, and use Heal, which you couldn't do before because the causes were strictly split into these causes are good and do heal, and these causes are evil and they only do harm. Well, now you can actually mix that up or choose the one new awesome option that is available to all champions. And you might have heard me say something about an aura in that last bit about the champion's focus spells. That's because another new best feature is the champion's aura. This is a 15-foot emanation around a champion. There's no activation for it or anything. It is just sort of a standard thing. This is the range for all of your champion's reactions and for various effects like we just talked about with Shields of the Spirit. This is so much easier than the old rules that always had to specify foot range increments. It's very simple, very cool, very effective. But now let's backpedal a bit and talk about the Oracle again for one of the worsts, which is the stripped out flavor text and the completely removed mystery benefits. These were both really well liked by a lot of players. The mystery benefits were a permanent thing about you, an ability, something like that, that you got because of your mystery, and all the parts, I mean the mystery benefit, the curses, all the parts of the old Oracle had so much flavor text to it, and that is quite drastically reduced now. I think a lot of people who loved the old Oracle loved it for this flavor text, and they're not going to like it quite as much anymore. But then again, for some people who didn't love the old Oracle, they might like the more streamlined mechanics now. So maybe this worst is actually a best for some people. And now to something that is without a doubt a best, and that is the new Sorcerous Potency core class feature of the Sorcerer. This replaces what used to be kind of a must-have feat called Dangerous Sorcery that allowed you to add some damage to spells. But now it's a core class feature, so you just get it, level 1, period. And it's even better because it actually will add some healing to your heal spells in addition to working with damage. It is a great pickup for the Sorcerer. Another cool, unique thing about this class, it is one of the best changes, maybe the best change, I would say, for spellcasters in this rulebook. Continuing with the Sorcerer and continuing with the best, I'm going to talk about the new feats that allow you to pick up additional blood magic. This is so cool. So beyond your basic Bloodlines blood magic, you can pick up other blood magic abilities as feats as you level up. Blood magic has always been the defining feature of the Sorcerer that nobody used or went way underused. But now there's a lot more to it, which is a great, great change. And now onto a relatively simple best for the Monk, who I've barely talked about because, well, it was already a really good class and it just continues to be so without huge changes. But one of the best changes does go to their monastic weaponry ability and how you can now use it with ancestry weaponry, as long as that weapon that was granted to you by an ancestry is agile or finesse. And this just makes sense, right? I mean, if you are an elven monk, you should be able to use a curved blade with Flurry of Blows, right? Now you can. Another relatively minor best that still needs to be called out is the way that the Investigator now solves an investigation. The text now states if you answer the question at the heart of your investigation, the GM tells you that you've done so. Now, ideally, your GM was already doing this, but, maybe not, or maybe you continue to investigate something even though you've kind of already discovered everything about it, and that's no longer going to be the case by rules as written. Your GM should be telling you, yep, you've done it, you can move on. So somehow the Investigator, the class that has always been the greatest class at figuring out what the heck is going on, has become even more of a, okay, what did we do in last session, and what are we doing in next session, and what are we figuring out right now kind of a build. And speaking of the Investigator, they are also the recipient of one of the biggest and frankly also best changes with the new secondary skill stratagem as part of Devise a Stratagem. If you won't be able to land that strike, or you simply choose not to, you can now use a skill stratagem. This will grant you a +1 circumstance bonus to your next intelligence, wisdom, or charisma-based skill check or perception check involving the target. This is huge. As I said in my Investigator video, Player Core 2 Investigator video, this gives the Investigator something to do when they can't land a strike after Devise a Stratagem that feels innate and part of the class, and it doesn't place the burden on you, the player. The class is now actually giving you some mechanics that make you feel, well, frankly, smarter. And for another quick best, and I do mean quick, we're talking about the Barbarian's quick-tempered core class feature. Trigger, you roll initiative. As long as you are able to move freely, your fury is instinctive, you rage. So you get to rage, almost without a doubt, on initiative now, and you don't have to spend that one pesky action, which I didn't even think was that big of a deal, but I mean, hey, a free action, I'll take it. Now on to maybe one of the biggest, and that is that the Barbarian no longer loses any armor class while raging. They still do gain temporary hit points though. Again, I don't think that they needed this, but again, I'll take it. It does mean that perhaps the Barbarian won't be the damage sponge that they used to be, but then again, perhaps they're still going to sudden charge into every encounter and stand in the middle of multiple enemies swinging away, so it might not be that big of a difference in the end after all. We'll see. Now, one of the best goes to the Swashbuckler's changed Precise Strike. They just deal 2 extra damage all the time, as long as they're using an agile finesse weapon or unarmed attack. 2 extra damage, level 1. No checks, no panache, just stab and it hurts more. I'll take it. And now onto another best with the Swashbuckler with Stylish Combatant. You now have a +1 to tumble through and to all other actions that have the bravado trait, which includes your subclass specific options to gain panache while in an encounter. And this is amazing. It's actual mechanics to support the braggadocious flavor text of the Swashbuckler, and it makes it way easier to gain panache. We are on a roll with the Swashbuckler with another best with the new subclass, the Rascal, the fun little rascal. I love this. The dirty trick feat that it gains is super whimsical. It's a fun debuff. It is a great new way to play as this very much improved class. Continuing with the Swashbuckler, they are really bringing us into the home stretch. There are now Swashbuckler feats that will work on the failure of your enemies. So did somebody miss you while you were pairing with your weapon? Boom, you get panache. So now, haha, you missed, is now both your roleplay and class mechanics. And on to yet another best with the Swashbuckler, those actions with the bravado trait, like tumbling through or doing something specific to your subclass or just doing something very crazy that your GM deems worthy of panache in the bravado trait, will grant you panache on a failure. Not if you critically fail, and it is relatively short-lived panache compared to the other regular panache, but I mean, it's still to the end of your next turn, which is plenty of time. I mean, more time than you realistically need. Oh, and also you can still gain panache even if the target is otherwise immune, so you can now demoralize a mindless creature, and as long as you succeed at that check, actually, as long as you fail at that check or better, you will still gain panache even if you don't leave it frightened. There's like no excuse to not have panache all the time as a Swashbuckler now. So to close out with both a biggest and a best, obviously it is the Swashbuckler class overall. I just named like 5 Swashbuckler bests in a row. So yeah, Swashbuckler overall class, easily the most improved, the biggest, the best changes to all of the classes in Player Core 2. Good for you, Swashbuckler. Well, what do you think, adventurers? Are there any big, better, best, worst changes that we missed in this video? There are obviously dozens and dozens of changes, some relatively minor, and then probably some big ones or good ones or even bad ones that I didn't talk about. If there's anything crucial that got missed, let's talk about it in the comments. Until then, remember that the remastered Swashbuckler and remastered Champion are a match made in heaven. Just make sure to stay within that protective 15-foot Champion's aura.